Hello everyone, Russ of Aquarimax here. It's time again for a live stream. Wednesdays, 5:30 US Mountain Time is when I generally do them, at least for now. And I have a few things I'd like to start with. One, I'm sorry the live stream was, the notice was so short. Reptimaster, hi and welcome. Thank you for being here. I remember you were here last time. There were a couple things I wanted to talk about my creatures. One, I've started the dark frog vivarium. Potato Derp, you're here, yay! And Soma Noir is here too. Hello. And Marvin. Hey, Marvin, how do you say that? Zox is here too. Excellent. Couple things that I'd love to say. Thank you. Wow, we've already got 4 likes, 7 people in the house. Excellent. And the frog vivarium, I've started it. I have the first layer of silicone on the back. Pretty exciting. It was kind of tricky, but it happened with the help of a couple of my kids. We got that done. Dinosaurs Terror World. Hi, Crystal Casares is in too. Hey, Jay Perry says Jay is a new follower. Hi, and welcome. Glad you're here. And Elaine Smith is in too. Great. Hi, everyone. So Dark Frog Vivarium is underway officially. First layer of silicone in. I'm still figuring out how I want to do the cork bark. Another thing that I wanted to talk to you about, I have an unboxing that I'm doing today sometime after this live stream that I'm really excited about from Bugs in Cyberspace. And my CO2 system with my in my Endler's tank has been working pretty well. I've got a lot of Pogastemon stellatus octopus going kind of crazy in there, and the guppy grass is doing well too. Although when I hooked it up again yesterday, something weird happened, and I must be losing CO2 somewhere along the line, so I'm gonna have to attack that tonight and figure out where the leak is, because it's producing CO2 and the bubble counter is working just fine, but somewhere between the bubble counter and the tank, there's another couple of different lines. There's some flexible tubing, there's some rigid tubing, then there's the CO2 diffuser. So somewhere along the line it stopped working. So how is life, Dinosaur Terror World says? Well, busy, crazy, but got some cool stuff coming on. I'm going to be doing some bug presentations at the university this week. No, not this week, next week. And I'm excited for that, and that's part of the reason for the unboxing. I'm going to get a few new bugs for that. Dinosaurs Terror World's first generation of dubias may turn into adults soon. Cool. Oh, and the like spike. Thanks, Potato Derp. We got like spike going. Someone else was mentioning the like spike earlier, I think, too. Who was that? Reptimaster. And we got one. So cool. So Dinosaurs Terror World has a Dart Frog project going on. Yeah, I still need to figure out whether I'm going to silicone the sides of the tank before I put in the cork bark and so on or not. Still thinking about that. Heather Nielsen, Scarlet Aquatics is in. Hi, welcome. And Reptimaster, where should I get my fruit flies for a bumblebee dart frog? Well, I have used a few different companies for fruit flies. Let's see. Josh's Frogs is a good one. Any Herp is a company that I have worked with a lot, and I trust them. I've never bought fruit flies from them that I can recall, but I bought a lot of other things from them, and I'm sure that they would take care of you, and they offer them. There are quite a few. Those are the 2 that I can think of right now. I've made purchases from Ed's Fly Meat, I believe, and they have, not with fruit flies, but with other things, and they do well too. Marvin Zock says, I will get a colony of 5 morning geckos soon. How are yours doing? Doing really well. I think at the last count I had, I want to say 16 or 17 eggs, something like that. I've had quite a few eggs laid lately, and some of them due to hatch any day now. Haven't yet. Dinosaur Terror World. I like the video so hard my head hurts. Elaine Smith says, can you put in a removable background if you decide to change your background? You can. It's kind of tricky to do that, but I've heard of people doing it. It seems to me that some people have done like a foldable, not foldable, how can I say? Like a background that's split down the middle and they kind of press it in. There are some caveats associated with that, though. You can have problems if creatures can get behind there. Some of the live foods can lodge themselves back there. Even the frogs, or especially small froglets, could get back behind the background. And some people have used things like lodging, shoving sphagnum moss down in the cracks to help avoid that. So That's something to think about. But yeah, it's not too easy to change the background that I'm going to put in. It's going to be impossible, essentially. So if I want to change the background, I'm going to have to change the aquarium. That's part of the reason I've been kind of stressing over it, honestly, making sure that I plan it just right. I had a planning session with my whole family, or at least everybody who was home. I put the tank on the ground, lying on its back, so to speak, and then put pieces of cork bark in there and move them around, and we looked at different possibilities of how we wanted to do it. But I didn't glue anything down, obviously, because I wanted to wait and make sure that works. Dinosaur's Terror World says, should you get your isopods from a breeder or from a garden? Both work. The three caveats associated with getting them from your garden. 1, they could have been exposed to pesticides. 2, they could have been exposed to elevated levels of heavy metals. And 3, they could carry some sort of parasite. So if you do get them from your garden, I recommend breeding them for a few generations in an enclosure separate from whatever you're going to put them with, their own enclosure for a while. And that way the babies should not have problems with the pesticides or being exposed to the high levels of heavy metals, as long as you have a good substrate. And that should help break parasite cycles too. Jay Perry says, Marvin, where are you getting your morning geckos? I can't find many online. Good question. We'll see. Sorry, I guess that wasn't actually for me. Potato Derp is going to be leaving for Oklahoma, as you mentioned. Is going to talk to the person who helps take care of his animals. Dinosaurs Terror World's getting a bearded dragon soon. Awesome. They're fun. Dinosaurs Terror World, are you planning on breeding your dart frogs? I'm not sure what I'm going to do for now, because I'm not sure how closely my dart frogs are related. They're probably siblings, though, and I'd rather not breed them for that. I am going to set up, I'm going to put bromeliads in their new vivarium, and they may actually, breed on their own a little bit in there. And if that happens, cool, but I don't think I'm going to try to breed them on purpose and produce a lot of froglets at this point until I switch one of them out for an unrelated. Ideally I'd switch my male out, so I'd have an unrelated male to the 2 females. Crystal Casade says, I'm thinking about getting leopard frogs. I'm big on frogs and turtles. Cool. I've caught leopard frogs in the wild, never kept them before, but I enjoy both frogs and turtles. Do you have any turtles right now? Or other frogs? Marvin Zock says, I'm from Austria and I'll get them from a local breeder. Maybe ask in a forum or a group of local reptile keepers. Facebook is always a good place to find such groups. True. Yeah. Getting demoted to background noise. I love actually listening to you, but art calls. Dinosaurs Terror World says, Russ, can you have a separate room outside for roaches only? Maybe. My wife said if I build, I have a separate building that's not connected to the house, I could do that. But if I did that, I probably wouldn't do it just for roaches. I'd probably just move a lot of my live foods out there. But, this would have to be, this is really a long-term project sometime far in the future, because I'd have to have a climate-controlled building, kind of like the king of DIY ended up doing with his gallery of fish and stuff. So, yeah. Mark Osborne, hey, how goes it? I'm doing all right. Things are crazy, but doing okay. How are you? Metro Bunny says, do you use glass lids for your dart frog tanks? Also, do you use fans for ventilation? I do use glass lids for my dart frog tanks, and I haven't used a fan yet for ventilation. I may do that at some point in the future, depending on how high-tech the setup is. What I've done for now is used some method, usually a very fine weave fabric of some kind, to provide a vent in it, and that seems to be sufficient. Okay. Devin Hansen says, I'm hoping to get, by the way, Metro Bunny, I did make a video that shows in detail that vent. If you go back a little bit to say, like custom vent for my dart frog vivarium a couple months ago, that's when I did it, and you can check that out, and that'll give you an idea. Okay. Devin Hansen says, I'm hoping to get morning geckos at a local reptile show in a few weeks. Is there anything I should look out for? I'm guessing they're similar to Cresties. Well, in terms of feeding and care, they're very, very similar to Cresties. In terms of temperament, they're not very similar to Cresties. They're very much more skittish than Cresties are. Not that they can't be handled and tamed if you're patient and you start when they're little, but they're just always going to be more skittish in general. There are a couple of different morphs. Not morphs exactly. They call them clones because they are descended from different clonal populations. And there are several of them out there. Some of them are more highly patterned than others and so on, but it's not like you can selectively breed them because they're cloning, just clonal generations. So if you can look for different varieties, and what I would recommend is looking up mourning gecko clones and get, there are some photos out there of the different ones, and you can get some of the rarer ones. Some are more active than others. Not more active, I guess, more outgoing than others, although I've noticed that a lot of that has to do with the environment and what they're used to as they grow up. But yeah, those are some things to think about if you want to make sure you get a healthy one. They're pretty hard to mess up, but make sure you get one that doesn't have kinks in its tail, and of course, no pieces of shed stuck to it, things like that. That'll help a little bit there. Mark Osborne says, pretty cat. Thank you. It's funny, he was here on the last live stream. I think he just came to hang out on the live stream, so maybe he likes the idea of being on camera. Reptimaster says, I'm getting dart frogs soon, and thank you. You helped me a lot. Thank you so much. Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad. What kind are you getting? Are you getting bumblebee dart frogs? Is that why you asked about it earlier? Okay. Crystal Casare says, I have frogs, but no turtle yet. What kind of frogs do you have right now? Heather Nielsen Scarlet Aquatics says, the link to your website in the description isn't working for me. Really? Ooh, I better check that out. I need to make sure that there's not a problem with it, that I renewed it on time and everything, so I will check that out. But I checked it out not too long ago and it was working for me, so I'll need to figure out what's going on. That was probably a week or two when I last checked. Dinosaurs Terror World says, Russ, can you add a substrate for your crickets and add isopods for a cleanup so you don't have to clean it? Well, you know what? I thought about putting isopods in. It just seems to be too dry and too hot for most isopods. I probably could add a substrate, but it ended up being really messy in there, the way crickets are. And they'd probably lay a lot of their eggs in that substrate, and then when I did have to clean it, I'd be throwing away eggs. That's kind of the problem with crickets. It makes it tough. Have I ever gone to a reptile expo? Yes. In fact, I've often thought of getting a table and selling stuff there, but I haven't done that yet. I have gone to a lot of reptile expos, and we have obtained some of our crested geckos and our leopard gecko and probably some other creatures from reptile expos. Dinosaurs Terrible, what's the difference between keeping locusts and crickets? Well, I have never bred locusts as a live food, so I can't tell you much about that personally. I wish I could. Niels Vandermalten says, I made a bioactive terrarium with only materials I found in the wood behind my house. There are lots of small bugs, centipedes, spiders. Is it safe to introduce a dart frog after half a year? Well, it depends. How is the setup going in terms of plant growth and things like that? That would help give you an indication. Also, if you only use materials found in the wood behind your house, the substrate might not be able to handle the level of humidity that is required by dart frogs over time. I mean, short term it might be okay. Long term, we'll have to see. I would say I would much rather use like an ABG mix or any herb style mix in there than just materials are found behind the house in terms of long-term longevity of the vivarium, but you might be able to make it work. I would be a little leery with centipedes and maybe even the spiders with the dart frog, but there are also some other critters that you can introduce accidentally, like Neramatarians, these little worm-like predators and things like that. They can eat springtails and cause problems that way. So I'm not going to say it won't work, but I'm going to say it's just going to be a little more complicated. Dinosaurs Terror World says close to 10K. Yeah, I think I'm only about, well, less than 60 away from 10K. Pretty exciting. Dinosaurs Terror World says, Russ, the Lion King is behind you. Yeah, he kind of does look like that in that pose, doesn't he? Okay, yes, bumblebee dart frogs. Okay, excellent choice. That's what I've got. And almost at 10,000, yeah, just like we were saying. Really excited about that. Thank you, everyone, for doing that, for subscribing. That really helps. Elaine Smith says, I can't access your website from the podcasts. Okay, I will have to do that too. I'll check it out because it looks like more than one of you are having a problem with it, so I need to see what's going on. And Metro Bunny says, how loud are your Dendrobates leucomelas? Well, not that loud. One just called a minute ago. I don't know if any of you heard it. My microphone may have blocked it out because of the pickup pattern, but they are about, I want to say maybe 12 feet away. And if you didn't hear them, they're not that loud, I guess. They sound a lot like a small bird, but I mean, you can hear them from across the room. but I never really notice them unless I'm pretty close to them. I guess that's not very precise, but hopefully it helps a little bit. Crystal Casari says, I have African cloud frog and some tadpoles. Cool. Dinosaurs Terror World. Do you buy most of your animals from websites or from shops and expos? It depends. I don't have any really specialist shops in my area. Only big box stores. I have to drive a fair distance to go to a shop, but sometimes I'll get things at those shops further away if I can. I do buy occasionally things at big box stores, but I try to avoid that somewhat. I like to go to the expos because a lot of the people who are selling there are local, or at least they're mom and pop style. You know, I'm not dealing with a big box store. I'm dealing with someone who's on a smaller scale, which I like. And you also usually get really high quality things from an expo if you know what to look for. Not that you can't get poor quality things, but it's easier to find high quality things at an expo. And then the websites, if it's something, a specialty item that I can't get at those other places, I will definitely go to a website and get it, as long as it's one that I have some indication that it's good, or especially if I've had experience with it. Zercool is here. What's up? I made it to the show. Thanks for joining. Dinosaurs Terror World. What light would you recommend for bearded dragons? Well, I would recommend some UV light. You want some fairly high rated UV light for bearded dragons, as well as a heat lamp. And you may want also a lamp for a night light that does not produce light, either a ceramic heat emitter or something, one of the bulbs that produces very low visible light but it produces a lot of warmth. When I was babysitting that bearded dragon a couple of months ago, there were 3 dome lamps over the enclosure. One was the night lamp, the low light lamp, but that was on all the time for heat. And there was a bright lamp to illuminate the enclosure and also as a heat lamp. And then there was a UV lamp. So yeah, they really like the UV. It's really good for them. So I would say something like that. And Dinosaurs Terror World. Oh, thank you. That's nice of you to say. Lumpy Dog is in the house. Nice. Thank you for joining us. Marvin Zock says, would it be, could I send you a message on the arachnoboards if I happen to have problems or a question regarding my geckos once I get them? Sure. Definitely. No problem at all. Be happy to help you out there. Dinosaurs Terror World. How loud are your crickets? Well, I guess I hear them right now, and they're down the hall. They're pretty quiet. I mean, I can hear them. I hear them at night. I don't notice anymore when I'm sleeping, but I can definitely hear them there across the hall. So yeah, they do make some noise. Reptimaster says, I'm going to get a bumblebee tadpole from someone I know. Any tips on taking care of the bumblebee tadpole? Wow. Yeah, tadpoles are a little trickier than getting a froglet or an adult frog. There's some great info on Any Herp about raising tadpoles, as I recall. They have a way where they put it in a deli cup and they have it, you put it in another container so that it's on its side, kind of slanted, so you have a gradient there with the water. And basically you create some tadpole tea, which usually includes some form of tannins, like it's basically black water like you'd use for an aquarium. Some form of tannins in there. You put some moss, some live moss, like Java moss, live aquatic moss, to help keep the water quality up. And you're typically using water with low dissolved solids in it. If you can hear that, my frog's calling right now. I don't know if you can hear that or not, especially over the swamp cooler. And then the foods that they give them, the HB8's tadpole bites are one of the foods they offer. So there are some ideas. I hope that helps, but you can check it out on their website for a little bit more information. Dinosaurs Terror World says, Russ, I miss my wife. I miss your wife. Why isn't she in the streams anymore? It's just generally it's a function of time. We want to make sure we have enough time together to focus on each other when we are together, and we don't have as much time as we would like anymore. She does dance 1 or 2 evenings a week, and then we've got things going on with the kids and so on. So basically, it's not like we don't want her to ever be in the streams. Hopefully she will be again, but generally I try to do it when I know she's going to be out of the house, because then I can focus on the stream, and then when she's here I can focus on her, and that's kind of what we decided to do to keep things balanced, I guess. Let's see. Okay, Devin Henson says, it looks like a server SSL error on your website. Oh, okay, thank you. I will get in touch with John the Web Guru and ask him about that. He's the guy who knows how to fix all that. Armanestra Pate is here. Good evening from UK. Hi and welcome. Tricerect Gaming, hi. Good morning from Indonesia. Nice. Okay, thank you for joining us from Indonesia. Let's see. Skipping through. Russ, can I make you an intro? Well, I'd be happy to see it. I don't know if I will use an intro or not, honestly. Just not anything bad about what you would make me. Just I'm not sure I will use one because I tend to want to get right to what I'm talking about. But I would be very interested in seeing it. I would definitely enjoy that, and I would probably show it in a video. Niels Vandermountain said, would you recommend going bioactive with a stick insect enclosure? Good question. I don't see how that couldn't work, although I don't have any experience with stick insects. I would be interested to find out if people are doing that. I don't see why not. It seems like the stick insect waste would be something that isopods and things like that would go after and would help maintain some of the humidity that they need. So just off the cuff, I would say it's probably a good idea, but I've never tried it. Ethan Vandal says, first time I've been able to catch in a while. Well, thanks for joining us, Ethan. Glad to see you here. Turtle says evening. Good evening to you, Turtles. Dinosaurs Terror World, did you raise some of your frogs as tadpoles? I have raised tadpoles before. I have not, the dart frogs that I have now, dart frogs I have now were not tadpoles though. But I have raised other species of frogs as tadpoles. Zercool says, how rare are zebra pillbugs? Been seen they're out of stock in most places. Yeah, they're so popular. They're hard to get a hold of. When I have sold huge groups of them, they'll sell in huge groups, they'll sell in small groups, they disappear really fast. So it's not so much that they're extremely rare, they're just in high demand, I think, is what's going on more than anything. And I am still building up my stock. I have a big crop of babies that is maturing, but I need to, I have to hold on to enough of them so that I don't run out of stock again. So I'm trying to build that up. Okay, Reptimaster says he can hear the frog, and the frog's really vocal. Oh, Dinosaurs Terror World can hear it too. Turtle said, how humid should humid be for isopods and millipedes in percentage? I'm not sure if I'm overwatering the enclosure. Well, in terms of percentage, I never measure it, honestly. I do not. But I will say that I try to keep ventilation low. You don't want zero ventilation, but you want to keep it pretty low so that it doesn't dry out. And that if you can reach into, grab a handful of substrate and squeeze it and water drips out, it's too wet. And if you can grab a handful and squeeze it and feel that it's moist in your hand and maybe a tiny bit of moisture on your skin but not dripping out, then that is what that's my guideline. Try to do it like that. And that usually manages to keep it pretty stable for them. It also depends on the species, of course. Armadillidium isopods, for example, and the Spanish porcelios don't like it quite as humid as that, so I keep it a little drier than that. But I always try to make sure there's a gradient too. If you keep one side of their enclosure kind of a little more damp than the rest of it, and the rest of it a little drier, they'll find where they need to be, especially if you have hides on both sides. So Crystal hears the frogs too. So, okay, I guess they're hearable because that's 3 people that have heard them. So, cool. And like I said, they're probably about 12 feet away from me, something like that. So, can I do an English accent? Well, I have been accused of doing an English accent on occasion. I don't know how good they are. Ethan says, intros are kind of annoying. I like the introductory statements better. That's kind of my take on that. Dinosaur Terror World says, Russ, what do you love about herp keeping? Everything except for maybe maintenance, cleaning up. I don't like that as much, which is part of the reason I like bioactive setups. But I love the fact that herps are so varied. You can get so many different, just thousands and thousands of species of reptiles and amphibians that are just amazing in terms of coloration, in terms of behavior, and just never a dull moment, I guess. That's part of it. They're just fascinating. I like the fact that you can interact with a lot of them. With my frogs, about the extent of my interaction with them is they come running when I feed them, And that's, not all that interactive, I suppose. But with our geckos, we can take them out and they look like they actually want to be let out, as they jump against the glass when we come by, like, come let me out, I want to play, and that kind of thing. We can hand feed them and things like that. So I love the fact that you can interact with them. And Dinosaurs Terror World says, what gecko species do you want to get? Well, I think next on my list of the ones, if I could just choose any gecko right now, it would be one of the Phelsuma day geckos. I'm not sure which species exactly. There's so many to choose from, but I love them. So, Reptimaster says, bye, see you next time. Well, thanks for joining us, Reptimaster. I appreciate it. Glad to see you here. Crystal Casario said, I have a millipede that I found at a park. They're cool. Awesome. What kind of millipede is it? Do you know? Is it a tiny one, big one? The Outdoor Explorer says, my orange isopods are always hiding. Am I doing something wrong or am I okay? Well, they tend to do that a lot, especially when there's a fairly small population in your enclosure. If the population density increases, you're likely to see more, but that tends to be pretty normal. And the more you get, when you drop food in there, they'll just swarm over the food and you start seeing them more. Dinosaurs Terror World says, Russ, did your daughter's gecko lay eggs for no reason, even if she isn't fertile? Leopard geckos do that. They do lay eggs, whether or not the eggs are fertile. Some other geckos no doubt do that. I get infertile eggs from my morning geckos once in a while too. So yeah, that's pretty common. I haven't seen any of her eggs, probably because in the bioactive enclosure, whatever gets laid gets eaten by the isopods as it starts to go bad. Did you ever interact with your isopods at some point? Well, interacting in like a meaningful communication-y sort of way, probably not. I do pick them up and handle them on occasion. Do I want a chameleon? Well, I think that would be cool. I would like a chameleon. My daughter would like a panther chameleon, and I think those are super cool. There are lots of species that I would be interested in keeping. Probably won't do that for a while, but I would love to. I like some of the little dwarf chameleons, the little teeny ones. They sound fascinating too. So yeah, I'd be interested. Potato Derp is back. Good. Glad to see you here. Dinosaurs Terror World. What breed is the cat? He's a mixed breed. He has some Siamese blood in him, though, definitely. But it's hard to say because he's so mixed up. And he is very comfy. And okay, Crystal says it's a small millipede. Cool. Those are often some of the easiest to take care of, the little ones. Dinosaurs Terror World. Do isopods lay eggs? Not exactly. They keep the eggs in a pouch until they hatch. And then even for some time after they hatch from the eggs. So they don't actually lay the eggs because the eggs are maintained inside that pouch until they're released. And the Outdoor Explorer says, thanks, these are my first isopods. Cool. Well, they'll probably hide for a while, but as your population grows, you'll start to see more of them. Dinosaurs Terror World. Russ, do you want to keep snakes? Yes, I have kept snakes in the past, and I would really like to keep one of the cool garter snake morphs, perhaps, or maybe a corn snake morph at some point. Garter snakes I like because you don't have to feed them rodents, but then you do have to feed them live earthworms and or fish, which, that's not necessarily a great thing. But they have some amazing garter snakes that are rather underappreciated. For example, the eastern melanistic garter snake that is almost pure black with just a little white marking under its chin. Fantastic. I've seen a couple at reptile shows and seen them online and would love to try that. Or some of the other garter morphs are just incredible. Even the wild morphs are nicely patterned. They stay small. They're pretty manageable. They're diurnal, so they're pretty active, and they're often really good at eating. So they're very cool. Ethan says, I accidentally overwatered my isopods and there is some mold. Should I be too concerned? Probably not. If you may need to change the substrate, depending if it's really like swampy in there. You might need to change some of the substrate. And do you have springtails? Springtails could help control the mold if you have them. If you don't have them, just see how swampy is it in there. If you can squeeze out a ton of water in a little handful of it, then I would replace some of the substrate to help balance out the water levels in there. Dinosaurs Terror World says, are isopods dangerous to humans? I don't think so. I don't know that there are any isopods that really hurt people at all. Potato Derp says, my mantis's leg is getting much better. It will probably be slightly wonky for her whole life, but it is much better. Now, is that her terminal molt? Because if it's not, you have a chance that it'll get fixed in the next molt. But if it is the terminal molt, there's not much you can do about it. But I'm glad it is getting better. And how are those little shrimp? Did your ghost shrimp, are they still doing well? The little ones that you just had? Dinosaurs Terror World says, Is it dangerous if there's more mold than the isopods can eat at one sitting? Well, the more there is, the more problems there are, possible, potential problems there are, but okay. If there's a lot of mold, I would probably take out the isopods and redo the setup and get some springtails. Tizart Mania says, thank you for all your advice. My little critters are doing very well. Excellent. Glad to hear it. That's what I want to hear. Exactly. So Potato Derp says it was her last mold. Okay. And Potato Derp says the shrimp have metamorphosed now. Excellent. Dinosaurs Terror World, do you ever had a mite infestation? Yes, I have. In fact, I lost a fairly new springtail colony to one recently. I hadn't had mite infestations for a long time, really long time, but they ended up showing up in one of my springtail cultures, and so I had to basically dump it out. I'm gonna have to start over with that one. Dinosaurs Terror World, is it dangerous if your isopods escape at your house? No, not really. They don't really do much, and it's too dry in here for them to survive for all that long, but they wouldn't really cause a problem. Ethan says, because there are so little isopods in my current culture, should I feed fruits and veggies, or is the leaf litter just fine? As long as you have a good quality leaf litter substrate, you don't really need to feed them any fruits and veggies until their population gets bigger. Even then you wouldn't have to, but there's really no reason to, as long as you can see that they're reproducing. If you want to give them very, very small amounts, there's no harm in that either. So either way, you could go either way. But I have done that on occasion, just left the colony with just the substrate, let them go for a few months until they really build up their population, and then start feeding them more. So that's definitely possible. Not a bad idea if you want to make sure that there's not issues with mold or mites or things like that. Dinosaurs Terror World, is it dangerous to keep termites? Well, could be an issue possibly. I know there are people who do it. I'm not terribly comfortable with keeping them in the house, and it's sad because I've thought about how it would be interesting to keep some. And Dinosaurs Terror World says, my face changes in every live stream. Really? Hadn't noticed that. I guess I'm always either more or less hairy, though. There's definitely that. Potato Derp said, I was bored, so I put some ostracods in a fish tank. They breed very fast, so it would be cool to see the colony grow. They do grow pretty fast. I had quite a few of them in my my amphipod Daphnia culture for a while. I think the amphipods have pretty much taken over. They've almost taken over the colony entirely, in fact, and I had to take some Daphnia out. I'm trying to see if I can maintain the Daphnia culture because they seem to be out-competing them, which has never happened to me before, but has been happening the last few weeks, and I'm trying to deal with that. So I'll see if I can get a separate Daphnia colony going and then maybe retry. Dinosaurs Terror World, what diet do you feed your cat? We give him a special kidney maintenance diet because he was having some kidney issues. Male cats, especially neutered male cats, have that once in a while. And he is 12 years old, so he's not super old, but he's not super young anymore. And we give him that. He loves it. We feed, I can't remember what the brand is, but it's special kidney maintenance and urinary tract maintenance diet. We have a automatic feeder that I got for like $5 on Amazon because we had a gift certificate. And so he gets 4 meals a day of very small amounts of food, which seems to help him not throw up because he has a sensitive stomach. And we don't do that. He tends to throw up more. Crystal Casare says, I keep all types of pill bugs. Awesome. Me too. I've got, I don't know, I think 4 or 5 different types of pill bugs and then other types of isopods that can't roll up. Dinosaurs Terror World, what was the longest beard growth you ever had? Maybe down here. I was going to dress up as Captain Jack Sparrow, so I let it grow out so I could braid it. And so I grew it out maybe down to here and then braided, it was like right here, just like Captain Jack Sparrow did, dyed it black and cut it just the way Captain Jack Sparrow did for Halloween. And then after that I cut it again and almost shaved the whole thing off, not quite, but I shaved most of it off at that point. Elaine Smith says, someone gave me some chicken crumble. Can mealworms eat it? Yes, that is the main diet I give my mealworms, chicken crumble. I use chick crumble specifically. Hopefully that's what you've got. If it's for the adults, it might not be as good for them. But the stuff, if it's for babies, for chicks, that's what I give mine, and they do it. They do well with that. Dinosaur Terror World, do you have local geckos? There's one species of gecko native to this state, the banded gecko, which is also native to other parts of the southwestern United States, but they're illegal to keep here, so I've never kept one. I haven't even so much as seen one. They only live in certain parts of the southern part of the state. So, Dinosaurs Terror World, did you check my 100 sub special video? I would have to do that. I haven't done it yet. I will check it out though. And Dinosaurs Terror World, can you do more care videos? Sure, yeah. If you have any special requests, let me know for the specific species and I'll put them on the list. I have a lot on the list, so I don't always get to all of them very fast, but I'll do my best. Potato Derp said, you said before that copepods breed sparsely. I did some experimenting, though I found that they breed in huge, dense colonies when the conditions are just right. Cool. I'd be interested in finding out what kind of conditions you have found that work for them that way. I have generally bred copepods just incidentally, like they're in some other enclosure with other species, and so they're not particularly, it's probably not particularly favorable. They're getting some competition. So I would be really interested in finding out more than that. Dinosaurs. Terror World, is it dangerous to have more CO2 than oxygen? Certainly can be. That is why I run an air pump in my aquarium at night, so I don't get too much CO2. And so you can have both CO2 and oxygen dissolved in water at the same time. But it is possible to get enough CO2 in the water to poison your fish, basically suffocate them. Ethan says, care guide for albino monitor lizards. They're like a plague where I live. Really? That is one I have not done yet, so I don't really feel qualified to offer that, although I wish I could. It would be interesting. Dinosaurs Terror World, can isopods breathe underwater for a short period of time? They seem to be able to handle life underwater for a while. The terrestrial ones, of course, the aquatic ones can be underwater forever, and there are some that are kind of amphibious that can be on water on land for long periods of times. Elaine Smith said suggestions videos for fireball frogs and newts. Okay, well, I've kept fire-bellied newts and fire-bellied toads. It's been a long time, but maybe what I'll have to do is interview someone who's kind of an expert like that. Ethan says, I'm lying, I live in Canada. Dinosaurs Terror World says, do you get money from YouTube? Yeah, I do. Not a lot, but I do. Enough people visit the channel that I do get some money from that. Dinosaur Terror World says, did you ever go to Canada? No, I used to live pretty close to Canada. I lived in Washington State and got within a few miles of Canada when I was a little kid. Never actually got much further than that, which is kind of sad because I'd like to visit Canada sometime, and now I'm further away. Well, it looks like I'm running out of time, so I'll just field a few more questions and then gotta go, but thank you for joining us, everybody. Dinosaurs Terror World just says, do you have a Patreon page? I do. I have Patreon Aquarimax page, and I've got several patrons, and if you'd like to join, I would be most pleased about that. So check out Aquarimax on Patreon if you want to pitch in. Dinosaurs Terror World, do you keep hermit crabs? Not currently. I have before. I've kept both marine hermit crabs in a Pico Reef tank, and I have also kept terrestrial hermit crabs. They're a little bit, it's been years, and they were a little bit difficult for me with molts. I didn't quite understand how the substrate thing worked at the time, so they didn't do all that well. I had a couple successful molts and many unsuccessful ones, so I stopped keeping them. I am tempted to try again someday, now that I know more about how their substrate works. Potato Derp says, copepods don't like competition. In a species only tangled with lots of light, heat, and food, they do their magic. They seem to breed quicker than Daphne when they're happy. Wow. That could be really useful for raising fry then, because they're not a whole lot bigger than newly hatched brine shrimp. So, and the Naupli are, comparable in size. So I might try that sometime. Thank you for that. That's cool to know. Dinosaurs Terror World says, are isopods dangerous to springtails? No, they seem to coexist just fine. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for joining. I've got to go. Last question, do you have an African Pac-Man frog? I don't, but someday I may. Are you talking about the pixie frog? Because there are the South American Pac-Man frogs, and then there are the pixie frogs, which are kind of similar in habits and appearance, but they're a different species and from different continents altogether. So I have kept neither, but I would be interested in keeping both. All right, that's it. And see you later.